All right, let's dive right in. Today we're going to break down a skill that's more than just a checkbox on your resume. It's your ticket into a real tech career. We're talking about mastering the Linux installation from the ground up to get you feeling confident and completely job ready. So let's get to it. So here's the game plan. We'll start with why this is such a critical career skill. Then we'll map out our pre-install blueprint. After that, we'll walk through the actual installation and even touch on how to manage your new system. We'll also see how Linux plays nice with other operating systems. And to top it all off, we'll go through some real interview questions so you can ace it when it counts.
Okay, let's start with the big picture. Section 1, installing Linux and your career. Look, this isn't just about tinkering or getting an OS to run. It's about really understanding the foundation that basically all of modern computing is built on.
And that leads us to the million-dollar question, right? Why is knowing how to install and handle Linux a top-tier skill if you want a job in the cloud or as a server admin? Why does this one thing open up so many doors?
Well, the simple truth is, Linux's influence is just massive. It isn't just one of the options. It is the standard for the servers that run our websites, our databases, our apps. It is the literal backbone of the big cloud players. We're talking AWS, Azure, and Google Cloud. And all those cool DevOps tools like Docker and Kubernetes? Yep, built on a Linux foundation. The key takeaway is simple. If you master Linux, you're speaking the native language of the cloud.
Now here's a pro tip. A successful installation doesn't start by just clicking Next over and over. Nope, it starts with a plan. That brings us right to Section 2, the blueprint. This is where we need to think about how we're going to set up our system using partitions and file systems. Getting this right at the beginning saves so many headaches later on.
First things first, partitioning. The best way to think about this is to imagine your hard drive is one big empty warehouse. Partitioning is just you building walls inside that warehouse to create different rooms. You make one room for the operating system, a separate room for all your personal files, and maybe you even build a third room for a totally different OS. It's all about keeping things organized and separate.
So, when you're building those walls, you have two main architectural styles, MBR and GPT. MBR is the old-school legacy method. It works, but it's got limits. It can't handle disks bigger than 2 terabytes. GPT, on the other hand, is the modern standard for today's UEFI systems. It can handle gigantic disks and lets you create up to 128 partitions. And hey, you're going to want to remember this one. It's a classic interview question.
So what rooms do you actually need in your new digital warehouse? Well, you want a root partition. That's just a single slash, and it's where the main operating system files live. It's also a really good idea to create a separate /home partition. This keeps your personal data safe and sound away from the OS. And then there's swap. Think of it like a safety net. It's virtual memory that kicks in if you ever run out of physical RAM. The flooring for all these rooms, that's your file system. And XD4 is the reliable, stable go-to for most Linux distributions.
Okay, our blueprint is ready to go. Now it's time to get our hands dirty in Section 3, the core installation process. This is where we turn that plan into a real working system. Don't worry, it's a super logical process.
Before the operating system can even wake up, something has to start it. That's the job of the bootloader. And in the Linux world, that's almost always grub. Just think of grub as the ignition system in a car. When you turn the key, it finds the engine, which is the Linux kernel, and gets it running. It's also the menu that lets you choose between Linux and Windows if you have both installed.
You know, pretty much any Linux installation breaks down into these 5 key steps. First, you boot up your computer from your installation media, probably a USB stick. Second, you use that blueprint we just designed to set up your partitions. Third, you configure the easy stuff, time zone, keyboard, your username. Fourth, the installer gets to work and copies all the system files. And finally, number 5, you reboot, and that's when Grub takes the wheel to start up your brand new system for the first time.
Now, how this looks can vary a bit. You have your user-friendly graphical installers like you see on Ubuntu or Fedora where you just point and click. Then you have the text mode installers, which are common for servers where you want something lightweight and precise. In big corporate environments, you'll see network installs or PXE, which lets them install Linux on hundreds of computers all at once. And of course, the live USB is perfect for just taking a distro for a test drive before you commit to installing.
So your system is up and running. Awesome. Now what? Well, let's jump into Section 4, Managing Your New OS. The heart of using Linux every day is the package manager. You can basically think of it as the command line version of an app store for your entire system.
And here's the crucial thing you have to remember. The tool you use depends on the family of Linux you're running. If you're on a Debian-based system like Ubuntu, your command is apt. If you're in the Red Hat or Fedora world, you'll be using DNF. And for the Arch Linux folks, it's Pacman. Seriously, this table is your cheat sheet. Knowing which command you use is a totally fundamental skill.
A very common question people have is, do I have to completely wipe out my Windows or Mac OS to use Linux? And the answer is a big resounding no. That takes us to Section 5, where we'll look at all the ways you can get Linux to work right alongside your other systems.
You've got three main choices here. Dual booting is great because it gives you full, raw performance by putting Linux on its own partition. Virtual machines, or VMs, are fantastic for testing. You can run an entire Linux desktop in a window on your PC or Mac. But for a lot of developers today, the real game changer is the Windows Subsystem for Linux, or WSL. It lets you run actual Linux tools and programs right inside of Windows. It's kind of the best of both worlds.
All right, we've gone through the concepts and the step-by-step. Now it's time for the payoff. Let's head into our final section, acing the interview. We're going to take everything we just learned and put it to the test with some real questions, so you can prove you actually know what you're talking about.
Okay, first one. This should sound familiar. The interviewer asks, what's the difference between MBR and GPT partition tables? How do you answer that?
Here's how you knock that one out of the park. You say, MBR is the older legacy partitioning scheme that's used by BIOS systems. Its main limits are 2 terabyte max disk size and only 4 primary partitions. GPT is the modern standard used by UEFI systems. It supports much larger disks and up to 128 partitions. That's the kind of crisp, confident answer that lands jobs.
All right, next up, this question is all about your practical knowledge of modern tools. The interviewer asks, how can you use Linux on a Windows machine if you don't want to dual boot?
You've got a few fantastic answers here. The first, and maybe most modern answer, is using the Windows Subsystem for Linux, or WSL, which gives you a native Linux shell inside Windows. Another great option is running a full, isolated Linux operating system in a virtual machine, using software like VirtualBox. And for bonus points, you can mention connecting to a remote Linux server using SSH. Knowing all three shows you really get it.
So, there you have it. We've gone through the whole process, planning, installing, and even acing the interview. You now have the keys to a foundational skill that runs the cloud and most of the internet. So the only real question left is the one you see right here. You know how to install Linux. What are you going to build with it?